You've been named as a trustee in somebody's trust. They've passed away, and so now you have to administer the trust. What does that actually mean? So a trust, you probably know at this point, but if you don't, a trust is just a legal document that says who gets what of your stuff after you pass away. One of the main goals is to avoid probate, so there's not going to be any court involved, no judge involved, nothing like that. And it gives you a lot of control over what happens with your stuff. But because there is no court involvement, somebody, which this person is going to be called the trustee, has to administer your trust and make sure all of the things that you want to happen actually happen, right? You have a house while you're alive. Let's say you want to leave it to your kids when you pass away, or you want it to be sold and the money split equally. Well, when you die, that doesn't just automatically happen. Obviously, you've got to have somebody who's going to do that for you. That person is going to be the trustee. And so while there might not be any court involvement, there is going to be possibly attorney involvement. The trustee, depending on the complexity, it might be a good idea for him or her to hire an attorney to administer the trust. But regardless, they're going to have to do some things. So what is it that they're going to have to do? Well, first of all, they're going to have to find all of the assets that you have, right? And hopefully that's easy for them. Hopefully you've created, some sort of binder, or, if you're creating your trust or you're doing a trust, make it as easy as possible on the trustee as possible. Because again, usually the trustee is going to be a close friend, a relative, a son, a daughter, something like that. They're already going through some grief and trying to deal with everything. And now they got to deal with all this legal stuff. It can be very overwhelming. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them. And hopefully the trustee is going to be it's going to be very easy for them to find all of the assets. They know where your bank accounts are. They were titled in the name of the trust, so they have immediate access to them. So that's one of the first things that they're going to do, is try to find those accounts. Depending on what the trust says, they might have to invest those assets, right? It might just be as simple as, hey, I want the money that I have set up, distributed to go to my two kids equally 50-50 outright right away. In that case, the trustee, all they're going to have to do is find all of the assets, or what we might say marshal all the assets, put everything together, and then make the distribution, as simple as that. Usually it's a little bit more complex. And again, if maybe you're leaving money for a grandchild, you don't want that money, most likely, depending on the amount, you don't want that money just sitting in a savings account, or earning 0.001, or whatever it is, interest. You might want that money to be invested. So the trustee might have to do that, might have to hire somebody, work with an advisor or something like that to invest the money. There might be some debts that have to get paid, right? Maybe your instructions are for the trust to pay for your funeral, your cremation, casket, other types of expenses like that. So they would be in charge of that. Maybe there's just certain distributions they have to make, right? Maybe you're leaving $50,000 to one person, you're leaving $100,000 to a charity, whatever it is. So again, this person's going to be in charge of doing that. So again, depending on the complexity, it could be a lot of work. Most of the time, big picture, what they're doing is finding all of the assets, resolving, hopefully there's no disputes among any of the heirs or the beneficiaries, but resolving any disputes, paying off any creditors that need to get paid, and then basically doing what your plan says you want to happen. Are you setting up trusts for your kids? That trustee might be in charge of that. Are you making distributions to a couple people? That trustee might be doing that. Maybe you set up a trust for a son that you didn't trust with money, and you want this person, the trustee, to manage that trust for that child, for the next 15 years, or until they're no longer using drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. That person might be doing that. So there are a lot of different steps involved. That's why I say, depending on the complexity, it might be a little bit over the head of the trustee, and it might just make sense, even if they do understand, it might make sense for them to hire an attorney to administer the trust for them, because they're busy, they got stuff going on. And we see sometimes where the beneficiaries, rightly or wrongly, they get upset with the trustee. They think they should have got their money quicker. They think the trustee was stealing it, or whatever the case may be. So you want to have everything well documented. So potentially a lot of steps involved, but that's generally kind of an overview of what happens if you've been named trustee and you've got to administer a estate.